Every Thursday, let's get skin to it with dermatologist Dr. Sandy Skotnicki and personal stylist and beauty enthusiast Marlo Sutton for a new episode of Skin to It, where we guide you through the maze of skincare and cut through that noise to help you achieve your healthiest skin. Skin to It, a podcast brought to you by Bioderma. Welcome to our podcast, Skin to It, your guide to healthy skin. I'm Dr. Sandy Skotnicki, board-certified dermatologist.
And I am Marlo Sutton, personal stylist and beauty enthusiast.
So welcome back, everybody. We have a great episode for you today. We're diving into all things sustainable in skincare and beauty. And we're really excited to have our guests, Jayme Jenkins and Jessica Stevenson from Everist Beauty. They're from Canada. They're female, co-founded sustainable beauty brand. And we're going to
exciting.
Yeah, we're going to talk to them about their journey of setting that
Of creating their
products
and launching it. It's pretty amazing.
So when Marlo and I were researching this, we were astounded at the amount of plastic that the cosmetic industry produces each year. And Marlo's going to take us through some stats.
Yeah, the stats are it's kind of crazy, right? So it's estimated that the cosmetic industry creates 120 billion units of packaging each year, 70% of which ends up in landfills. I mean, can you imagine? It's just really hard, right?
Yeah.
It's estimated that 10% of packaging is small format, plastic lip balms, compact caps, which require special processing if recycled and won't be. What isn't is incinerated, landfilled, or dumped.
So I wanted to jump in here because right before this, you were telling me you're in France and about the caps. So why don't you tell the listeners about the caps in the bottles?
Oh, yeah. So on all of the, water bottles or Coke bottles or everything, the plastic ones, the caps don't come fully off any longer. They're attached to the bottle.
Right.
So I'm guessing it was just the caps were becoming separate from the bottles and according other category.
Yeah, according to your stats, those are the things that don't get recycled, the small format. So that's in France. So we haven't seen that in Canada yet.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So it's estimated that humans have created more than 8.3 billion metric tons of plastics. 91% of it has not been recycled, and 70% ending up in landfills, which it takes over 400 years to decompose. So
so
the reality there.
The amount of reading on this is just the more you read, you just want to learn more, because a lot of this is coming from in third world countries. They just don't have the infrastructure to collect. It often ends up in big dump areas, which find their way to the ocean. So let's define a little bit about the plastics. There's microplastics, which are small, like the size of a pencil eraser. And those are problematic for sure for animals eating them. But then
it ends up in the ocean and then it breaks down into these microplastics, right?
Yes. The plastic bottle does. And then it goes into the ocean and breaks down to the microplastics. But the other big thing is microbeads, which are these sort of exfoliants that you would have seen in facial scrubs, cleansers, toothpaste. And they're made from polyethylene plastic, but they have been banned. So President Obama was really the first in 2015. The Microbead Free Waters Act of 2015 banned plastic microbeads in cosmetic and personal care products, mostly because these things pass through the filtration system, right? So they end up going to the oceans and lakes. And UK followed in 2016, and Canada banned them in 2018. And of course, the EU had banned them.
Well, I'm sorry to say that I never really thought about it. What actually was those little pieces that is in the exfoliator and in the scrub. So if we're not using these little microbeads, then what are we using if we want to exfoliate?
So now we have natural exfoliants like jojoba beads, sugar, salt scrubs, oat scrubs, coffee scrubs. Like there's all these things now. As a dermatologist, I'm not a huge proponent of. So we have over scrubbing, but it's like we have mechanical exfoliation where you're actually physically doing something versus chemical. So I'm more of a chemical exfoliation, like that's like acids, lactic acid, glycolic acid, or alpha hydroxy acid.
And that's going to slough off that top layer, give us like as if we're physically scrubbing it off.
It's a chemical peel, but in doing it, you're peeling the skin or exfoliating the skin chemically rather than physically. So I'm not a huge proponent of these physical scrubs because they're also going down the drain.
Right.
All that stuff about going down the drain. I like dry brushing. I think dry brushing is great. I have a dry brush. No, not your face. No, for your body. For your body. So, and you brush.
Do not dry brush your face.
You take the brush and you go up the arms towards the lymph drainage. Yeah, and you do the same on legs. It helps with lymphatic drainage. Okay, so that was the funny part. Onward.
Like, I love what Sandy finds funny. Okay. So obviously we're, as humans, we're not immune to this threat of all this plastic in the ocean. Like we just said, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years for it to fully decompose and to break down. And then it goes into these tiny little particles that end up in the ocean being eaten by fish. And then we end up eating that fish and ingesting these microplastics, which is really terrifying to me.
Yep. Well, and then just to come full circle, the other issues with ocean plastic, as we said, the birds will eat the microplastics, and there's pictures of swaths of birds dying on coastlines because they died and their bellies are full of plastic. Dolphins and bigger animals then eat the birds, and they ingest the plastic. Interesting article I read, like dolphins are really smart, and they avoid the plastic, but when they eat the animal that has the plastic, it's like us. And then the thing that I want to really end off is entanglement of plastic bags and netting, and I have my own personal story about that. So with turtles and other large animals, it can cause asphyxiation and loss of limbs. So when I was in Costa Rica a few years ago visiting our friend Andrea, and we got up like 4 a.m. or something to go see. There's like thousands of turtles that come on the coastline of Costa Rica to lay their eggs. It's beautiful. And we saw one, like we were there and the sun was coming up. We saw this one that was sort of struggling in the tide area. And we went to take a look, and it had its fin was so congested and blue. It had a plastic bag wrapped so much around its limb that it was, and it couldn't come up to lay its eggs. So the ranger actually helped him, because you're not supposed to touch any of this. You're supposed to sort of witness it. But I've seen it firsthand. So when you're going on a boat or you're at a beach, take care with your plastic bags. Like, don't let them go over, go into the ocean.
Don't take your plastic to the beach.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's such a sad story, and I can't imagine witnessing that. So Sandy, let's talk about recycling programs. Let's talk about proper ways to recycle, because that'll be really interesting when we talk
to the girls. Yeah. Well, I think there's this concept I was reading about as a wish cycling. So we just heard from your stats that most of the stuff that we actually recycle doesn't actually get recycled. So I know that Holt Renfrew, we're going to talk about this amazing company, Terra Cycle, but I know that Holt Renfrew joined forces with them. And do you want to tell us a little about, because it's at your store. So
yeah, it's boxes so that so many of us have no idea what to do with our makeup compacts and with our bottles of things. And sometimes the packaging is so big and bulky and heavy.
So bad.
And so, this company is just amazing to set up the space for people to return those items and that they get properly recycled.
So for prepping for this episode, I really went deep on Terra Cycle. It's so fascinating. So this was started by a fellow named Tom Sasky. He's considered the Elon Musk of waste. Imagine having that title. 10 years ago, he started this thing called worm poop, which is like a fertilizer. And he says in his article that he started it for his buddies that were making marijuana or growing marijuana. And then it's sort of along his waste journey, he started Terra Cycle. So Terra Cycle has these sort of 5 pillars. And what they do is their number one pillar is they recycle everything, anything, gum, cigarette butts, bottles, bags. And they have these boxes. They're called zero waste boxes, and they're category specific. So you can have a box if you have eyeglasses, like if you're an eyeglass store and people bring them back. If it's beauty products, if it's baby products, if disposable garments that are in hospitals, like all those things can be recycled in these specific boxes. And you just go online, you order the box, it comes, and then when it's full, you call UPS and they pick it up. Number 2 is they recycle all of this stuff and make raw material out of it. Right. And companies can actually purchase this raw material to make things. When I went on the website, they used this raw material they had ping pong tables, like occasional tables. They had, this was funny, they had an ashtray made out of cigarette butts. It was actually really beautiful. So this innovative way of recycling. Number 3 is this incredible program called Loop, where I'm still not 100% sure, but I downloaded the app. It's not here in Canada. It's in France, Japan, and the US, where you can actually buy your favorite products in a durable, reusable package from retail stores, and then the UPS picks it up again when you're done, and then you just buy again. So it's a global reverse supply chain. Number 4 is innovation, which we talked about. And 5 is they have a global foundation that's nonprofit to help reduce the flow of plastic waste from rivers and canals. So as they make more money, I think they're like Fortune 500 company now. They made 80 million in 2022, and they're giving back to help decrease the plastic in oceans.
Well, that's amazing. In some recent stats that I was researching, 76% of consumers want sustainable products. It's obviously very, very top of mind, and everyone wants to try and do their part, especially when you witness things like Sandy's story about the turtle, and just in general seeing, and knowing how much of plastic is in the ocean. But, sustainability in consumer goods is so much more, which is fascinating because we really learn, are going to talk about this with our guests. But from production, from sourcing the materials, from the packaging, it's so many levels that have to be considered when you really want to create a product that is sustainable. But also good for you. Because we're talking about a beauty product still, right?
So on that note, I'm going to introduce our guests.
Can't wait.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to introduce our guests today. It's Jayme Jenkins and Jessica Stevenson, who are graduates of the Ivy Business School here in London, Ontario, Canada, a very prestigious business school for any of you listening from other countries. They have a lot of experience in the corporate realm, in the beauty sector, having held positions at Revlon, L'Oreal, and Procter & Gamble. And driven by their shared vision of entrepreneurship and corporate responsibility, they embarked on a sustainable beauty brand called Everist. And it is available online and various retail stores. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about where it's available during our discussion. And I'm going to hand it over to Marlo.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, let's just start it off. Why a sustainable shampoo company?
Great question. So we can tell you a little bit about our origin story, and Jessica and I will tag team on this as we normally do. But as you mentioned, we're longtime friends. We went to business school together. We both ended up in the beauty industry, working for some incredible global beauty companies and learning a ton. But I think we just got to the point in our careers where we really wanted to have more impact. And I think sometimes it's really hard to change an organization that big. And, we, amongst trying to change it, in different ways ourselves, we came to the realization that if we wanted to do something very different and kind of make a more dramatic change in the direction of sustainability, which was like a personal passion for both of us, and also, of course, clean ingredients and natural ingredients and all that stuff, we would really have to take that leap ourselves and see if we could, do something really different and something that hadn't been done before. So it was a realization that came to us probably over a couple of years. It was a really long process for us to first decide that we wanted to work together, figure out kind of the vision that we wanted. At the time, the first initial vision was, how do we create, at the time we were thinking about a zero waste beauty company. What would that look like if you thought about every aspect of your business and kind of with that in mind, designed it that way from the beginning, versus having to make those changes later on, which is really hard. So that's how we started. And there wasn't even a product in mind when we first started exploring ideas. It was really with that concept in mind. And we looked at tons of different business models. We looked at things like, retail refilleries. We looked at a milkman model type of ideas with packaging. We looked at a whole bunch of different form factors. And waterless, which is what we ended up doing in kind of concentrated formats, wasn't on our radar until a little bit later when we started to see it as a big trend in the home cleaning industry.
I just want to quickly mention, and I should have done this at the introduction, that I didn't tell the listeners some of them may know your brand, but you have four SKUs now, but 3 main SKUs, a shampoo, a conditioner, and a body wash that have no water in them, and they're anhydrous, they're a paste. So sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
And I'm just wondering, are the products made in Canada? I know you're both Canadian, born in,
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah. So our Hero shampoo and body wash is made in the GTA, so in Canada, and then our conditioner is made in the US. So just about having local, but also having good distribution sources. And I think too, as Jayme was starting to talk about our journey, and obviously sustainability was definitely at the foundation. I think now when we talk about the company and who Everist is, we do describe ourselves now as a hair, scalp, and skin wellness company. They created the first ever shampoo, conditioner, body wash concentrates that are based in skincare instead of water. So it's something that, obviously creating some new. Part of our journey was actually finding ways to talk about it in a clear and simple way that people understand the benefit, and really making sure that benefit, what's in it for me, is clear and on the forefront, but then also doing the heavy lifting on the sustainability behind that.
So on that note, my next question was going to be, well, twofold. Congratulating you on your Forbes Award for Best Innovation in 2021. And so if you could tell our listeners like what that award was for. I believe it's for the packaging as well as the formulation. But what did that do for you? And that's really exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was pretty great. Obviously, like launching, kind of launch year, winning an award like that among a few others. And I think what really stood out was the innovation nature. I think in the beauty industry, where we kind of come from, is that, innovation is sort of just tiny changes in ingredients, etc., but not necessarily kind of more game-changing true innovation. It's rarer. And so the fact that we created a product where we actually took out the water, concentrated out, and built this base of skincare, which is over 50% aloe vera and glycerin, than all your different surfactants or different agents, that hadn't been done before. And I think our perspective, is also a lot of manufacturing feats and really working on the production side. How can you scale that? How can you put that into sustainable packaging that's also compatible, et cetera? So there was a lot of different challenges along the way to get into that form and function. And I think whether it was the Time Inventions Award or being recognized that way, I think there was just a sense of, wow, there's something different and something that does obviously have lower carbon footprint, less waste, et cetera, doing that in a category that's actually huge. We shampoo, conditioner, hair, globally, it's a huge industry. And so, it's almost simple, right? Like it's a very simple category, it seems. But if we can make this kind of change, you can actually have really big impact at scale.
Yeah. So, it's so exciting that you've done this. And nobody can see you right now, but your hair looks amazing.
All Everest.
It's all Everest.
All Everest.
Yeah.
And so I guess what was really you just talked about the formulation, but maybe get into that a little bit more. And
just a quick question about the formula, because that's where we wanted to go next. But did you win the best innovation for the formula, for the packaging, or for the whole enchilada, like the whole thing?
We have won, since we launched in 2021, almost 20 different awards. So one of them was Time's Best Inventions, which is, I think, the one you're referring to. And then it was highlighted beyond that with a feature in Forbes. So that was really on the innovation. As Jess said, there's not a lot of it's almost like we launched a new, category of this category. It's almost like a new, it's kind of like almost like a hybrid between a shampoo bar and the base being aloe vera and glycerin, which are obviously moisturizers, the glycerin in particular, the humectant. So it's almost a new category that we started to push into, and we're seeing some more innovation come out in this space. But it was a really different type of product that didn't exist before, really painful from a manufacturing point of view, as Jess said, and scaling that up. So the Times Award was really recognizing the innovation. We also were recognized by Fast Company, world-changing ideas for that innovation as well. But beyond that, I think what we're really proud of is there's a lot of beauty awards in there as well. So for example, our deep conditioning concentrate, which is a really rich, creamy conditioner. You can also use it as a hair mask. Won just last year Cosmopolitan's best conditioner overall at the Clean Beauty Award. So it was Lullaby, which is Jennifer Aniston's conditioner or hair care line, won best shampoo, and Everest won best conditioner. So just to have really some of that. For us, coming from the industry, was really, how do you bring this real beauty cred, these incredible high performance formulas, but just happen to make them, highly sustainable? How do you almost Trojan horse that sustainability into the best shampoo that you've ever used or the best conditioner that you've ever used? So that was really our vision for this brand, is how do you make something that has mainstream potential, but happens to be really, in a different, more sustainable format. That was really our goal. So a very long, journey to figure out what the innovation would be, and then to tap into this idea of concentrates, which was very new and hadn't been done before.
So one of the things when I was researching for sustainability was looking at actually the ingredients themselves. So before I did this research, this episode, I was thinking, mostly about packaging and recycling of products. But I read somewhere 18 million acres of forest a year is estimated to be needed to grow ingredients in skincare like soy, palm oil, sugarcane. Now, I know you guys don't use those, but a sustainable product is not just about the packaging or the recycling. It's also about where the ingredients come from. If the farming, hurts the local environment, the wildlife, the communities, palm is really bad for that. Like they have huge amounts of acreage to grow. So do you have any comments on your skincare brand? And did you think about that when you were looking for the product ingredients themselves?
The things that we learned when developing Everest is kind of, as you've just uncovered by doing this research yourself, is there's many different ways into sustainability. So packaging is probably the most obvious, but there's the ingredients that go into the product. There's also, which I didn't mention before, the after effect of the ingredients as well. So what is going down the drain and what's lingering in our water systems, which was especially important for us when developing the products. Another one is the carbon footprint of the product. So that's actually one of the biggest areas where we see a huge advantage with Everest, because the products are concentrated. They're a third of the size. We have a 77% smaller carbon footprint. So there's lots of different kind of ways you can approach it. And it was interesting for us as we were building this brand, in the beginning with the idea of, okay, if we want to make it as close to zero waste as possible, which we now know is, it completely impossible, but we still always have that goal shining ahead to think about every different aspect of the brand and the product and the business. But there's so many different ways in. So yes, definitely from an ingredient point of view, choosing ingredients that we can source locally where possible, choosing organic, like our organic aloe vera where we can, so critical. But then also for us, it's very much about choosing, plant-based and biodegradable ingredients as well, and avoiding things like silicones, which have some evidence that they don't completely biodegrade in the environment and leave, whether or not you call them microplastics or something similar to microplastics, in our water systems that kind of bioaccumulate. So we were very conscientious about different ingredients we use. And we're also proud to say our shampoo and our body wash are 100% plant derived, which is something that's challenging to do, but was really key for us as we were building the brand.
I have a quick question about just for the listeners, because I'm a research nerd and I was reading all this. So you can have plant-based ingredients, but if you want to have organic plant-based ingredients, that means that we go back to that sustainability of the ingredient itself. So it's farmed on where the farming land is, not destroying wetlands or wildlife, and also they're not using pesticides. So natural and organic are similar, but organic something quite different. And of course, then there's all those regulations around that are like, are these things actually organic or not? That's a discussion for maybe regulations when we do our regulations episode.
We wanted, so Sandy and I had discussed Terra Cycle before earlier, and that I work at Whole Renfrew and we have that program available for the clients, which I think is fantastic. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your packaging. I know aluminum, recycled cardboard, obviously exists. Yeah. We have it right here.
Now the listeners can't see this, but I have and you've got this nifty little thing because it can get hard to turn it down. I'm showing the bottle, the aluminum.
And I don't know if you've seen, I have it here, but my camera's not off. Not on. We have our aluminum tins now too. Have you seen these?
Yeah, I have those up for the travel. I have the travel ones, but yeah.
So we also have them in full size aluminum tins as well, which are kind of like a bigger version of the travel size, which is great as well, which we introduced, I think, in 2022, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm guessing this type of packaging is more expensive. Probably, yes. What are some of the issues you've had just coming up with this packaging? Yeah. And I know you have, so your caps, again, I'm holding up the product, but your cap is plastic.
Correct. Yeah, we can take you through.
And you have a cap back program. Yeah. So maybe we can talk about that, because I think that's super interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think as we looked at all the different packaging options we could use, we did pick aluminum as our first choice because it can be infinitely recycled back into itself. And then even throughout our journey, we actually started with virgin aluminum, and then we were able to move to completely 100% PCR aluminum to try to reduce that impact even further.
What does that mean?
What's PCR aluminum?
And what's virgin aluminum?
I know.
Right. Right. So PCR aluminum, just like PCR plastic, but the idea is it's actually already been used before and it's being recycled. So it's post-consumer recycle. And so the benefit there obviously is the mining of the aluminum can have an impact. And so obviously using it after the fact, it lowers the impact even further on the planet. And so these are the kind of choices that we do make throughout. It's like, how do you start somewhere and then how do you try to always get better? And that was one of the decisions we made. And of course, as you mentioned, like we use craft paper, 100% recycled paper, and all the other pieces. But when it comes to, say, the cap, we actually, it's an interesting journey too. We originally wanted to use, say, a metal cap or something, but there's leakage, there's other things. So when we actually looked at too, also bamboo, if you see a lot of bamboo caps, you're like, okay, that would be a good option. But a lot of those type of caps, if you actually look inside, they have a plastic lining. So it actually becomes like multi-material. Well, multi-material is actually less recyclable than if it's just straight plastic. So really trying to look at the nuances of each of those pieces. And so we ended up going with the plastic cap. We actually ended up making it a color. It was our original intent to say, hey, we could always be better. Let's make it bold and let's remind ourselves. And then we do, as you mentioned, have a cap back program to make sure that we can take responsibility and upcycle into future Everest products was always the goal there. So really just trying to take some responsibility. And then to your point about Terra Cycle, these different programs, I mean, obviously they're great as an option too, to be able to drop off things like that, the cap if people wanted to, or obviously other products. I mean, for us too, we just want to encourage people to have access to these points where they can recycle things properly. We also do things, even though we don't really use plastic, we partner with things like Plastic Bank and try to remove ocean-bound plastic. So really just trying to take those additional initiatives on scale can really start making a difference.
God, it's amazing all the different levels of things you have to think about. And
Well,
things
good.
that is never, I mean, I think most people would have no idea what actually goes into the products that you have made. It's pretty brilliant.
Oh my goodness. It was a journey of discovery for us as we kind of were like unfolding it all, creating the right, and it continues to be like learning for us, and constant improvement is really like our goal. As you learn more, you have more things available to you as you grow. As Jess said, PCR aluminum being a good example, we just keep improving and keep adapting as we go.
Yeah. And actually, to answer your question too about challenges, I think the other thing you don't always think about is actually minimum order quantities, for instance. So because we're using more specialized, packaging, that they actually have really high minimum order quantities. So it's another thing, where do you source it from? It's not as readily available, etc. So you have longer lead times. So just making sure that obviously you have to build that into the actual plan, the production cycle, etc. Which would be easier to go just to plastic. Yeah. But we did not want to go down that route.
I have two questions about the packaging. The first one is, again, I've read all kinds of things, and we're doing a whole episode on mushrooms, like medicinal mushrooms, not hallucinogenic mushrooms. And so I read all about this mushroom packaging, and I was just wondering if you guys had looked at it. And for the listeners, we'll talk a little bit on the mushroom episode, but you can take the mycelium, which is the roots of the mushrooms, put it into like a mold, and you can do it to whatever your product is, and then they give it food, basically hemp, or because the fungus will grow and it forms this package. Did you guys consider that? I would imagine it's more expensive. The company that I read about was Ecovative.
I've heard of them. There's so many of these interesting kind of, I don't know, call it biotech, perhaps, like packaging companies that are like sprouting up. For us, the challenge has always been the products are wet. So they're like a cream and they're in the shower environment. So that's always been for us like a consideration of the packaging, right? Like, because they have...
I was just thinking of sorry to interrupt you, the box, not the tube.
Not the tube.
Yeah, the box. Because it's more, I think the mushroom stuff is more, the original plan for these two engineers that started it was to replace styrofoam. So it's more the packaging. You guys should look into it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very cool.
And of course, our box is 100% recycled craft paper. We make sure we use the right inks, etc. too. So.
And you talked about the cap back program, but you didn't actually explain how it works. Like how does it work for the consumer, your cap back program?
So they need to collect 10 Everest caps. That's what we require, obviously, to reduce the carbon footprint of like shipping them back one by one. So they need to collect 10 Everest caps. And then we have a little section on our website, a little drop-down section where you can just put in a request for a free prepaid shipping label that we pay for to send them back to us at our cost. And we collect them at our warehouse, and then we process them for upcycling and for future Everest products.
That's awesome. Way to go. Well done.
We're going to kind of wrap up, but I'm guessing when you must go out shopping and look at products now, you must think like how much plastic it is and how much, I mean, It is incredible. I think for our listeners just to realize all the different levels that you have innovated. So it's absolutely incredible. So is there anything else like you really want our listeners to know about sustainable beauty, about your products, about how to use them? Anything you want to, what else do you want to say to us?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of, sustainability and sort of that cycle and looking at the shelves, obviously it's just making choices. I think it's challenging out there. Is, it can be hard on yourself when you're trying to make these choices because the world isn't necessarily set up in a way that we can just avoid plastics, right? Obviously, I think it's really about companies and even government starting to make either regulations or new products available that give the consumer more options to make those choices a little bit easier. But obviously, when you're faced those choices, choosing something that is not only the packaging, so trying to reduce plastics, but what's in it, what goes down our drains, as we said at the beginning, all is very important. We actually talk a lot now about saying what often is better for the planet is better for us too. So, those things really do go hand in hand. So just thinking about that, and I think just being mindful of those choices. I think plastic is almost as a material that you could just use for anything, everything, and it was cheap. And so it just got overused. And so, yeah, having these new alternatives is just great. And so we hope to see more of that. In terms of Everist, as I said, it's a very innovative product. I think at the beginning of our journey, we definitely did focus a bit more on the innovation and trying to explain it. And I think, as we said at the beginning, really getting people just to understand the actual benefits for your hair, for scalp health, that you actually can have a product that's actually better, for your scalp and actually have this great hair growth versus just thinking that you're doing something from a sustainability perspective. I think that's what really will get people to stay with it. And that's just really important, right? You can try something, but you want to make sure you stick with it. And when you stick with it, you'll actually see benefits for your scalp health, for, hair, like over time. And so that's something I'd like to just sort of mention is that you can have both. I think when originally clean and sustainable products, it's always about compromise. And I think that's starting to change. So you don't always have to have that compromise. You really can have a high performing product.
Well, Jayme, is there anything you wanted to add about your company or anything new that's coming or any other last bits about sustainability you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say there's lots of interesting things we can say about Everist. We're doing some pre-clinical trials with TRI Princeton and have some incredible benefits coming back with scalp health and scalp hydration in mind. So that's the direction that we're heading. And it's the feedback we always get from our customers in terms of that, scalp benefit. So that's something you'll see us lean into more as a brand. But in general, just coming back to the sustainability angle, I would say I just want everybody out there who's purchasing products to remember the incredible power they have as a consumer. And really, that's what creates change in an industry is when you vote with your dollars. So if it's something that you really believe in, be conscientious about the money that you spend, because that's what really dictates, the direction that an industry will go in. And that's what really led us on this journey to creating Everist, is that we were hearing these requests from consumers firsthand. And that's what set us off on this path. So don't ever underestimate the power that you have. Of course, it takes time and it's a journey, and we are all evolving as we can and with what's available to us. But it's really, really important, if it's something that you care about passionately, that you can really vote with your dollars.
Yeah. So I'm just going to end off in saying, I hope I get to work with you guys at some point, and if we're still in the midst of that, that would be awesome.
Definitely.
But I wanted to send out a call of action for the end of this episode to our listeners. If you own a company like Holt Renfrew, you can look into getting Terra Cycle in your break room. You can have a box just for your break room so when you go in and have your snacks, you can have it at your home. I'm considering getting one in my home. I've started it in my office, not just because sometimes it's hard to bring extra, bottles back, but all the products that I use in my office, all these empty bottles can go into Terra Cycle, and then they will just, you buy the box, but then they come and pick it up. UPS will pick it up for free. So yeah, everybody out there, it's a good thing to do. Do you want to sign off with anything?
So I know your products are available obviously online. Do you want to, what's your next steps, and where else can we find it? And
so yeah, we are online at helloeverest.com, but also we're available at some specialty beauty retailers like the Detox Market. We're at well.ca. We're at Whole Foods. So we're kind of expanding. We do believe in being omni-channel, where our customers want to shop and making things more accessible. So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're extremely both busy. You're busy entrepreneurs and founders. So thank you and congratulations.
Congratulations.
And keep up the good work. Thanks for being our guests.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
You're welcome. Bye.
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 Catch us every Thursday for a fresh exclusive dose of Skin to It. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on the skincare wisdom. We will guide you through the maze of skincare and cut through that noise to help you achieve your healthiest skin. Loving our podcast? Share your thoughts and help us grow by leaving a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until we meet again, see you soon on Skin to It, your guide to healthy skin. Skin to It, a podcast brought to you by Bioderma.